Hello, it is me, again, just like last time, and the times before that too. I'm back, as I said I would be, and today we are discussing the separation of church and state, and also, hopefully, beating Hush for the first time. Come on, OBS, what are you doing? There we go. That was strange. Let's see, who's best to beat Hush with? I'll do a Kane run. Alright. Separation of church and state. So, not all religions like being separated from the church, but at some point in European history especially, it became it was seen as starting with the Protestant Reformation, it was seen as a pretty good idea to start separating the two, as the Catholic Church had been a sort of government of its own, and had a lot of governmental authority for many years. Of course, a lot of the, I don't mean to say that the Catholic Church itself was all-powerful or anything, although it also kind of was. I won't get into the history of the Catholic Church today, but maybe that'll be another episode. Point is that Martin Luther, in the Protestant Reformation, had this idea that there are two kingdoms. Now, that idea actually comes from the Bible, suggesting that there are two separate kingdoms. Am I really gonna risk it? Yes, I am. And now, I have this that I will use at a later time. So, again, the concept of there being two kingdoms in the world is sort of directly from Jesus, in the sense that, well, the main place where this comes from is when Jesus is asked whether the Jews should be able to, or should pay the temple tax. I'll take Botfly, that's actually not bad against Hush, even though it is a little underwhelming. So Jesus is asked whether the Jews should pay temple tax to Rome, and Jesus says, basically, that the coins that they have all have Caesar's image on it, so it belongs to Caesar. He sees no reason for them not to. But that doesn't mean that the secular government of the Roman Empire, well, I say secular government, they weren't exactly that, but that the Roman Empire is not an authority over them in a religious sense, even though they pay taxes to it. Ooh, alright. Well, you know, I said I'm gonna face Hush today, which means I'm gonna have to be a little quick, but I can't pass up this opportunity to make a lot of shmoney. You know, I'm not gonna go back for that second one. I already have the item room. I'm now fully healed. I'm good to just continue. I wish I had a bomb, though. Anyway, Martin Luther, 95 Theses posted to whatever monastery that was. I apologize, I didn't look it up. That's good. Started a whole wave of sort of religious revolution. What the? Started a whole wave of religious reorganization and revolution, in a sense, taking a lot of power away from the Catholic Church. And again, Martin Luther. Wow. Maybe. I'd like to keep the horseshoe for the moment. Yeah, that's right. All right. This run is pretty decent so far. Oh, did they make Sci-Fly? No, not Sci-Fly. Sci-Fly is always and forever a superior item to Botfly. Did they make the Botfly's Tears homing? That hasn't always been the case, has it? Oh, no. Aw. Nice. Excuse me. I'll bomb up here. Yeah, well, it wasn't a locked room, but it was a room. Anyway, I did do research for today, although it might be difficult to tell, but we haven't really gotten to that research just yet. Excuse me. Which is why I'm floundering a bit with what to say. That's unfortunate. Anyway, the Two Kingdoms Doctrine, in essence, suggests that, in Christianity at least, there's the worldly kingdom and then there's the kingdom of heaven, and the two are separate. No need to merge them. Now, since the Protestant Reformation, there have been a number of ideas as to what this means exactly. I'll take both of these, since I have the luxury to do so. Exactly. Nice. I suppose I'll take that. So, from the Protestant Reformation, we have the Radical Reformation, and from the Radical Reformation, we have the roots of modern-day Quakers and Amish and Mennonites. And the Amish, in particular, believe that they should not associate with the worldly secular powers or governments hardly at all, insofar as they're able to, at least. Whereas Mennonites and Quakers, I've really not gotten... Oh, okay. It's not worth keeping that. As much as I'd like it. Whereas the Mennonites and Quakers believe in some amount of participation in local government still, even if they might disagree with what the governments are doing. Please correct me if I've gotten any of that wrong. I didn't take thorough notes on the Mennonites or Amish or Quakers, and I don't have a lot of personal experience with them either. Let's see, so... from the Protestant Reformation, another branch that we need to talk about... Oh, alright. Is, oh. Huh. Another branch of history, rather, that we need to talk about is John Locke, famous English political philosopher, who you may have heard before, argued that the government has no authority over an individual's conscience. So, in other words, insofar as this relates to religious freedoms, the individual is allowed to derive truth from wherever they want, really. And that the government should have no say in it. Of course, at the time, the English Empire, as it was, had an official state religion, which was the English Church. And there was a lot of opposition to it. And in fact, you may be familiar with the phrase disestablishmentarianism from SpongeBob. Disestablishmentarianism is the movement to get rid of the English Church being the official state church of England. The more you know. I guess. Ow. Now, of course, another thing that the English spawned was America. And one of the founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson, well, before that, in the United States Constitution, specifically the First Amendment, as part of the Bill of Rights, it explicitly states that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. And then Thomas Jefferson wrote, clarifying that, clarifying the two kingdoms sort of doctrine, sort of understanding. And Thomas Jefferson is the one who, at least in the English language, coined the term separation of church and state. I am very healthy. Yeah, I'll take it. Ooh, damage? Damage. Where are you? There you are. How much time do I have? I have 13 more minutes. That's not great, but it's not terrible either. Ooh, yuck. I don't like this room. Not that it's that terrible, I just don't like it. Let's see, different governments around the world have very different ideas about separation of church and state if they follow that doctrine at all. The most notorious, the strictest, being France's constitutional doctrine of secularism, known in French as Well, I've already forgotten the pronunciation because I'm not French and can't speak French. So I'll just grossly Americanize it. Lycite. That is not at all how it's pronounced. I think it's Licite? 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 That sounds right. With this constitutional policy of theirs, what it effectively does is prohibits any sort of public expression of religion. Or not expression, any public practice of religion. So no religion, no religious actions or acts at all in public places, and also no symbols that can even be perceived as religious in public. This would include wearing a cross necklace, for instance, something which is mildly popular among Christians. And absolutely also includes any sort of headwear for head coverings for women who are Muslim, which is one reason why there's a lot of contention between France and Muslim populations. The government of France and Muslim populations. According to this doctrine of secularism, it is also, I believe, such that public figures are not allowed to practice any religion. They may still be religious, but they may not openly practice their religion. This is the strictest form of separation of church and state. All right. But it is not the only form of separation of church and state, and I personally quite like America's, and not just because I am American and therefore think that my country is the best at all things. I think we've figured it out pretty well. So the separation of church and state in America, again, as defined by the... Whoop. Okay. As defined by the First Amendment, was, as I read earlier, that the federal government, at least that's the implication, does not have an established I already blew a guy up. Whatever. The federal government does never establish any religions of its own, nor will it suppress others effectively. There. Oh, I don't... I'll take it. I don't think I can... Yeah, okay. More health wouldn't help either, which is why it didn't really matter. Now, there are some interesting court cases that help establish what the separation of church and state exactly looks like in America. And the first one I'm going to talk about when I'm done pushing this chest over. Well, I'll use this right now. Okay. Now I will continue to blow these up. The first court case I will talk about is Reynolds versus the United States, which is a case from 1878. Oh, I don't need the golden horseshoe anymore, do I? Whoa. Sure. So, in Reynolds, excuse me, versus the United States, what happened is Abraham Lincoln signed into law, or I guess not law. Was this an executive order? No, no. I think it was a law. Was Abraham Lincoln a legislator before he was president? I want to say yes. Ow. Oh, come on. Anyway, there was a law that prohibited bigamy, which is the more or less the legal understanding of the practice of polygamy. That is, to marry multiple people, to marry an additional person while you are currently married to someone else. Abraham Lincoln outlawed this, but did not ever intend to enforce the outlaw. Even so, it is considered a crime. And so the Church of Latter-day Saints in the 1870s decided to sort of test the Supreme Court's definition of separation of church and state, and tried to argue that a man who had been sentenced for 2 years of hard labor due to his bigamy should be let go because it is simply a religious practice of theirs. Polygamy, that is. And the Supreme Court found that although you may practice whatever religion you like, it does not make you exempt from criminal indictment. So that's pretty good. You know, we're allowed to have religion, but laws supersede religious practices. I fully support that. So long as laws are reasonable. I guess I'll take more bombs. Oh, there's 20 minutes. So no boss rush for me, but that's quite alright. The other case I want to talk about today is Everson versus the Board of Education of course she snipes me while I'm reading. Everson versus the Board of Education from 1947. And the context for that case is this. In New Jersey, there was a decision to help pay for buses for school children going to schools. However, triple brimstone. Oh. Yeah. However, some of the schools whose buses were being paid for by this program were Catholic schools, not public schools. And so a New Jersey resident filed a lawsuit claiming that the separation of church and state should apply in this case. And the Supreme Court had a split decision over this, but the majority decision, the majority opinion, was that it is all right in this case, that paying for buses to drive students to Catholic schools is not directly influencing the institution of Catholicism. No! No! Wow. Actually, let me, yoink this guy first. Yeah, there we go. So even though, first of all, this is a state issue, not a federal issue, the Supreme Court decided that the separation of church and state should still apply to literal states, not just the federal government. That was a rather landmark decision here, but they also decided, again in the majority opinion, but not the only opinion, that it is fine in this particular example because providing buses to school children, regardless of whether it was public schools or private schools, was in the interest of the general public. Oh boy. Let's see, here's a fun fact for you Americans in the audience. Actually, here's a not-so-fun fact for non-Americans in the audience. You may not be aware of it, but in America, all public school students are expected to say the Pledge of Allegiance every day, every morning, which I know has weirded out some people before. And in hindsight, I mean, yeah, it's pretty weird. I didn't think it was weird at the time, but of course that's because I'm a literal child. Back then. Not now. Not anymore. Not ever since the accident. But the Pledge of Allegiance is a bit weird to force students to say, but that's even ignoring the fact that as part of the Pledge of Allegiance, students are required to say that effectively God is involved. Well, that's a weird way to put it. Let's see. One nation under God. As it turns out, the phrase under God is not original to the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay. The phrase under God was added in 1954. Due to the, I forget what their name was, but they were a Catholic group. Ah, that's beautiful. Joker! Okay. I'll use this, and then... Ah ha 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 ha, yes. Blue womb time. By the way, I've completely forgotten about this. Meant to mention it earlier, but yeah, I guess my count at the top of the screen was wrong for a while there. Since I had that one run with the R key a while ago. Ooh, pretty fly. What was this? The Magician. Oh ho ho. I'm not sure how proptosis would affect me, so I'm taking multi-dimensional, baby. Let's see. Yeah. Yeah, I guess this is good. Now, if you don't know this about the Hush fight, and I don't think this fact has changed, this first stage affects how much health and armor the second phase has. So if you kill the first phase too quickly, you're gonna end up screwing yourself over a bit for the second phase, if I understand it correctly. It's been a while. And again, these mechanics may have changed since they're changing a lot of subtle things like that recently. Now back to the separation of church and state. What everyone's really here for. So the Pledge of Allegiance, specifically the phrase "under God," has always been a bit controversial, to say the least, with a number of atheists always rightfully complaining about it, in my opinion. I don't mean to say that their complaints are unjustified, but I don't think I can describe them as anything more than complaints either. But again, I believe they're justified. It's a weird thing to say. It's a weird thing to force students to say, regardless of their religion. And I could see why people have argued against the use of that phrase, especially when you try to consider the doctrine of separation of church and state. Of course, once again, this is not benefiting any specific religious institution, and almost every religion has gods or a god, so it is only exclusionary to a few religions or non-religions. Is exclusionary the right term? I don't think it is, but I'm gonna say it anyway because I'm a little busy at the moment. Anyway, why talk about this topic at all? In the future, I'm sure to talk about other topics that are tangentially political. It is not my intention to ever be political. However, I am interested in talking about things like abortion, which is unfortunately a topic that is rather politicized in America. Oh yeah. That was cinematic. And now... What? Oh. Well. Huh. Anyway, the topic is going to be vaguely related to other topics in the future, and one last thing I wanted to say about it is that laws can come from anywhere, from any origin. It is the opinion of some people online that if a law is comes from a religious idea, that separation of church and state should prevent that law from ever being passed. However, that's not what separation of church and state means. Again, we're talking about institutions affecting each other. If you have a religious belief that staring at the moon is wrong, then you are free to pass a law that enforces that belief, that punishes people for staring at the moon. So long as that law does not directly impact, or even indirectly, so long as that law does not impact your religious institution where you share these beliefs with others, then there is no issue. You are more than welcome to create and pass laws based on religious values. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, what are laws but what we feel is right or wrong, and it doesn't particularly matter where those beliefs of right or wrong come from. What matters is the drafting of the bill and then passing it through legislation so that it becomes ratified as a law. Maybe I used that word wrong. Anyway, that's the important part. I hope you learned something today. This was a successful run, I'd say. I'm a bit disappointed that it, yeah, the void, great. I'm a bit disappointed that I didn't manage to, end up going to either Isaac or Satan, but this was a pretty good run, all in all. Again, hope you learned something today. Hope things have been entertaining for you as well. Hope things have been going well in your personal lives too. But regardless, I will see you tomorrow at the same time. Take care.